They left her to die in a blizzard because she dared to save the one thing that could destroy them all. This is the story of Elin Voss, the Omega nobody wanted, the girl who sang to death itself and won. A story of survival, forbidden power, and a bond that shattered kingdoms. If you want to see how an outcast becomes a queen, how a dying wolf becomes a king, and how one voice can rewrite destiny, stay until the very end. And if you're watching from your city tonight, drop it in the comments. Hit that like button, because this journey is just beginning. The wind didn't howl anymore. It screamed. Elin Voss pressed her shoulder against the woodshed door, boots sliding on ice as the storm tried to rip her backward into the white chaos. Her fingers were numb inside her gloves, her face raw where the snow had been cutting at her skin for the past 20 minutes. She could barely see 3 feet ahead. Everything was white noise and frozen violence. "Come on," she muttered through cracked lips, shoving harder. "Come on." The door gave way with a groan, snow cascading inward as she stumbled into the relative quiet of the shed. She stood there gasping, leaning against the doorframe, her lungs burning from the cold. Outside, the blizzard continued its assault on the settlement. 3 days now, without pause, without mercy. 3 days since anyone had seen the sun. 3 days since anyone had spoken to her directly. Elin pulled the door shut behind her and stood in the dim interior, catching her breath. The shed smelled like damp wood and rust. Tools hung on the walls like forgotten relics. In the corner, stacked haphazardly, was the firewood she'd come for. Not much. Maybe enough for another day if they were careful. She moved toward it, her movements stiff and mechanical. Her body was tired, bone-tired, the kind of tired that came from 3 days of being useful without being seen. That was her place here. Useful, not wanted, never wanted. She started loading wood into the canvas sling she'd brought, her hands working automatically while her mind drifted. She thought about the faces in the communal hall that morning, pale, drawn, anxious. The storm had cut them off completely. No one could get in or out. Supplies were running low. Tempers were running high. And when the firewood had run out, when someone needed to brave the storm to fetch more, the room had gone silent. No one had looked at her. They never did. But she'd felt the expectation like a weight pressing down on her shoulders. The Omega can do it. She's got nothing else to contribute anyway. Elin had stood up without a word, pulled on her coat, and walked out into the storm. That had been an hour ago. She hefted the sling over her shoulder, testing the weight. Heavy, but manageable. She'd make it back. She always did. The door rattled suddenly, violently, and Elin froze. Not the wind, something else. She turned slowly, her heart picking up speed. Through the gaps in the wooden slats, she could see movement, dark shapes shifting in the white. Voices, muffled but urgent. "Told you she'd be here." "Waste of time. Just get her and go." Elin's jaw tightened. She knew those voices. Darren, Michel, probably Soren too. Young alphas from the settlement, the kind who thought their designation made them important, the kind who'd never let her forget hers. The door banged open and 3 figures pushed inside, snow swirling around them. Darren was in front, broad-shouldered and scowling. Michel and Soren flanked him, both looking cold and miserable. "There you are," Darren said, shaking snow from his hair. His eyes landed on the firewood sling. "Good, you're done." Elin didn't move. "I can carry it myself." "Wasn't asking." Darren stepped forward, reaching for the sling. She pulled it back. "I said I can carry it." Mutta Michel laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Still got an attitude, huh? Even now." "Even now what?" Elin kept her voice flat, emotionless. She'd learned a long time ago that showing anything else just gave them ammunition. "Even now that everyone's stuck here because of the storm," Soren said, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. "Even now that supplies are running out. Even now that you're the only one not pulling real weight. I'm here, aren't I?" Elin gestured at the wood. "Getting firewood while you 3 stood around complaining." Darren's expression darkened. "Watch your mouth." "Or what?" The air in the shed shifted, thickening with the sharp, aggressive scent of alpha posturing. Elin felt it like a pressure against her skin, that instinctive attempt to dominate, to make her submit. It didn't work. It never worked on her, and that seemed to make them angrier. "You know what your problem is?" Darren stepped closer, and Elin could smell the sweat and frustration coming off him in waves. You think you're special. You think being broken makes you interesting. I don't think anything about myself, Elin said quietly. I just exist. That seems to bother you more than it bothers me. Michelle moved to her left, cutting off that angle. You're Omega. You're supposed to… I know what I'm supposed to be. Elin cut him off, her voice hard. And I know what I'm not. So unless you're here to actually help, get out of my way. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Darren laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You're really something, you know that? All alone, no pack, no bond, no future, and you still talk like you matter. Maybe I don't, Elin said, but I'm still the one who went out into the storm while you waited inside where it was warm. Soren pushed off the wall. We're here now, aren't we? Because someone told you to check on me. Elin hefted the sling again. I'm fine, go back. Not without the firewood. Then carry your own. Darren's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. His grip was tight, just shy of painful. Listen. Elin twisted, fast and sharp, breaking his hold with a move she'd learned from years of being grabbed. Don't touch me. The temperature in the shed seemed to drop even further. You really want to do this? Darren's voice was low, dangerous. Out here? In the middle of a blizzard? I want to do my job and go home, Elin said. That's all I've ever wanted. Mikkel snorted. Home? You mean that shack on the edge of the settlement? That's not a home. That's where we put things we don't want to look at. Something inside Elin's chest twisted, sharp and familiar. She shoved it down, buried it deep where it couldn't touch her. Then you won't mind if I go back to it, she said. She moved toward the door, but Soren blocked her path. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. You don't get to decide that. Elin looked up at him, tall, solid, completely certain of his place in the world, everything she wasn't. Fine, she said quietly. What do you want? The three of them exchanged glances. Darren spoke first. We want you to understand something. This settlement, it's barely holding together. People are scared. They're cold, they're hungry, and they're looking for someone to blame. And you think that's me? You're Omega, Mikkel said, like that explained everything. Unmated, unbonded, no pack claim. You're wrong, and wrong things make people nervous. Elin had heard variations of this speech her entire life. She was used to it. That didn't make it hurt less. So what? She asked. You want me to leave? We want you to stay quiet, Darren said. Keep your head down. Don't draw attention. Don't give anyone a reason to turn on you. I never do. You exist, that's reason enough for some people. The worst part was that he wasn't wrong. Elin looked at each of them in turn. These boys who'd grown up alongside her, who'd never once treated her like she belonged, who saw her as a problem to be managed rather than a person to be known. I'll take the firewood back, she said finally. You three can tell everyone you helped. I won't correct them. Soren frowned. It's what you want, isn't it? Credit without effort? Elin adjusted the sling on her shoulder. I'm used to it. Now move. For a moment, she thought they might actually stop her. Then Darren stepped aside and Mikkel and Soren followed suit. Elin walked past them, out into the screaming white chaos of the storm. Behind her, she heard Mikkel mutter something that sounded like ungrateful, and Darren's low response, let her go, she'll learn. The door slammed shut. Elin stood in the blizzard, snow immediately plastering itself to her coat and hair, and allowed herself exactly 3 seconds of feeling, anger, hurt, exhaustion. Then she shoved it all down, turned toward the settlement, and started walking. The wind tried to kill her twice on the way back. Once, a gust hit her from the side so hard she went down on one knee, the firewood sling nearly pulling her over completely. She caught herself on a fence post she couldn't see until her hand smacked into it, gasping as the impact jarred up her arm. The second time, she lost the path entirely. The world became nothing but white, no up or down, no sense of direction. Panic clawed at her throat for a few seconds before she forced it down, forced herself to think. The wind comes from the north. The settlement is south-southeast. Turn your back to the wind and angle left. She did. 30 steps later, a building materialized out of the white, the storage barn, exactly where it should be. Elin sagged against the wall, breathing hard. Her face was numb, her fingers were numb, But she was close now. She pushed off the wall and kept moving. The communal hall appeared like a ghost ship emerging from fog, its lights dim but visible. Elin made for it, her body moving on autopilot now. Everything narrowed down to the simple task of putting one foot in front of the other. She was 10 feet from the door when she heard it. A howl. Not the wind, not anything natural. A howl, long, broken, desperate. It came from somewhere to the east, from deep in the storm, from a direction no one should be. Elin stopped, her head turning automatically toward the sound. Nothing. Just white chaos. The howl came again, fainter this time. Weaker. Something in Elin's chest tightened. An animal. Probably dying. Nothing you can do. She turned back toward the hall, took one step. The howl came a third time, and this time she heard something in it that made her freeze. Not just pain, not just distress. Power. Whatever was making that sound, it wasn't weak, wasn't small. It was something dominant, something alpha, and it was dying alone in the storm. Elin stood there, snow building up on her shoulders, the firewood sling heavy in her hand. The smart thing to do was go inside. Deliver the wood. Get warm. Forget what she'd heard. The smart thing. The safe thing. Elin had spent her entire life doing the smart thing, the safe thing. And where had it gotten her? She looked at the communal hall door, warm light seeping through the cracks. Then she looked east, into the howling darkness. "This is stupid," a voice in her head said. "This is how you die." Probably. But she'd been dying slowly her whole life anyway. At least this would be quick. Elin adjusted her grip on the firewood sling, lowered it carefully to the ground near the hall door where someone would find it, and turned east. Into the storm. Into the dark. Toward the dying howl. What? She lost the safety line within 5 minutes. The settlement had ropes strung between buildings, guides for anyone caught outside during the storm. Elin had followed them as far as they went, then kept going, using the howl as her compass. It came irregularly now, sometimes minutes apart, each time weaker than the last. Turn back. You can't help. Turn back. She ignored the voice and pushed forward. The wind was worse out here, away from the buildings, with nothing to break its force. It hit her in waves, each one trying to knock her down. Snow filled her eyes, her nose, her mouth. She couldn't see anything, could barely breathe, but she could still hear. Another howl, closer now, definitely closer. Elin angled toward it, one hand out in front of her to ward off obstacles she couldn't see. Her foot caught on something, a branch, a rock, and she went down hard, slamming into the frozen ground with enough force to knock the air from her lungs. She lay there for a second, gasping, tasting blood where she'd bitten her tongue. Get up, or you die here. Elin pushed herself to her knees, then her feet, kept moving. The world was nothing but sensation now. Cold, wind, pain, the taste of blood and snow. She was beyond cold, beyond tired. Her body was shutting down, piece by piece, and she knew it. Didn't matter, not anymore. Another howl, and this time it was so close she felt it in her bones. 30 feet, 20, 10. Something dark materialized in the white. A massive shape, black against the snow. Elin stumbled toward it, fell to her knees beside it. A wolf. The biggest wolf she'd ever seen. It lay on its side in the snow, black fur matted with ice and blood. One of its hind legs was twisted at an unnatural angle. Deep gashes ran along its flank, the wounds already freezing. Its breathing was shallow, labored, dying. As Elin knelt there, staring, the wolf's eye opened. A pale gold, almost white, burning with fading intensity. It looked at her, and Elin felt something shift in her chest, something she didn't have words for. This wasn't just a wolf. Couldn't be. The presence coming off it, even now, even dying, was too strong, too aware. This was something else, something more. "Hey," she said, her voice barely audible over the wind. "Hey, I'm here." The wolf's eye tracked her movement as she reached out slowly, carefully, placing her hand on its massive head. So cold. Too cold. "I can't save you," Elin said, and the truth of it sat like a stone in her chest. "I can't. I'm sorry. I don't have anything that can—" The wolf made a sound, low and rumbling. Not quite a growl, not quite a whine. Elin's throat tightened. She'd come out here for this? To watch something magnificent die and be powerless to stop it? Yes, something inside her answered. Because no one should die alone. Okay, she said quietly, settling into the snow beside the massive creature. Okay, I'm staying. The wolf's breathing rattled. Minutes, maybe. Maybe less. Elin stroked its head gently, her numb fingers barely feeling the coarse fur. And then, without thinking, without planning, she began to sing. It was an old song, ancient, really, something her grandmother had taught her before she died, back when Elin was small enough to believe she might be wanted. A song in a language she didn't fully understand, words that felt heavy on her tongue, weighted with meaning she couldn't quite grasp. Her grandmother had called it a passing song, something to ease the journey from one place to the next. Elin had never used it before, never had reason to. Her voice was rough at first, raw from the cold and wind. But as she sang, something changed. The words came easier, her voice strengthened, carrying over the storm. The wolf's eye remained fixed on her face. Elin sang, and as she did, she felt something moving through her. Not quite magic, not quite power, but something in between. Something old and deep and right. The wind around them seemed to quiet slightly. The snow fell less violently. She kept singing. The wolf's breathing steadied, just a fraction. Elin barely noticed. She was lost in the song now, in the strange warmth spreading through her chest despite the cold, in the way the words seemed to reshape the air around them. She didn't know how long she sang. Time lost meaning. All that existed was her voice, the dying wolf, and the storm fading to background noise. When the last note left her lips, the world came crashing back. The cold, the wind, the exhaustion that made her bones feel like lead. Elin sagged forward, her forehead resting against the wolf's shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't do more." The wolf's chest rose and fell beneath her, still breathing, still alive. But for how long? Elin closed her eyes. She was so tired, too tired to make it back. She knew that now. She'd die here, beside this magnificent creature, and maybe that was okay. Maybe that was better than dying alone in her shack on the edge of a settlement that had never wanted her anyway. The wolf shifted slightly beneath her, and Elin felt rather than heard a sound, low, resonant, almost like a purr? Her eyes opened, confusion cutting through the exhaustion. The wolf was looking at her, that pale gold eye sharp now, focused. Not dying, not even close to dying. What? Elin pushed herself back, staring. The wounds on its flank were still there, but they looked different, less raw. Not healed, but healing. The wolf's breathing was stronger, steadier. Elin looked at her hands, then at the wolf, then back at her hands. "What did I do?" she whispered. The wolf made that sound again, deep and rumbling, and then, moving with obvious pain but moving nonetheless, it lifted its massive head and pressed its muzzle against her chest, right over her heart. Elin froze, not breathing, not moving. She felt it then. Connection. Thin as spider silk but growing stronger by the second. Something binding her to this creature, this impossible, powerful thing that should have died but didn't. "Oh no," she breathed. "No, no, no." The wolf rumbled again, a sound that might have been satisfaction. Elin scrambled backward, or tried to. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. The exhaustion was catching up to her now, dragging her down. I didn't mean to. Her vision was starting to blur at the edges. The wolf watched her with those burning gold eyes as she swayed as the world tilted and spun. The last thing Elin saw before darkness took her was the wolf standing, shakily, painfully, but standing, and moving to curl its massive body around her small, freezing one, protecting her, the way a pack protects its own. Then nothing. Elin woke to screaming, not her own. Other voices, high and panicked, filtering through the walls of somewhere. She was warm. That was the first thing she registered. Actually warm for the first time in days. The second thing was that she hurt everywhere. Every muscle, every joint, every inch of skin felt bruised and raw. The third thing was that she had no idea where she was. Elin's eyes cracked open. Dim light, a ceiling made of rough wood. She was lying on something soft, a cot maybe, with actual blankets piled on top of her. Memory crashed back. The storm, the wolf, the song. Oh no. She tried to sit up, and her body screamed in protest. Everything hurt, everything, but she pushed through it, forcing herself upright, blankets falling away. She was in her clothes still, though someone had removed her boots and coat. Her fingers were wrapped in clean bandages. Someone had tended to her. The screaming outside grew louder. Elin swung her legs over the side of the cot, waited for the dizziness to pass, then stood. The room swayed. She caught herself on the wall, breathing hard. Where am I? Not her shack. This place was too nice, too warm. She stumbled toward the door, pushed it open. The communal hall. She was in one of the back rooms of the communal hall. The main room beyond was chaos. People everywhere, all talking at once, voices raised and frightened. Elin caught fragments. Heard it calling. All night, that sound. Never heard anything like it. Going to get us all killed. She pushed through the doorway, and the room went abruptly, completely silent. Every eye turned to her. Elin froze. There she is, someone said. Michel's voice, tight with something between fear and anger. The crowd parted, and Elin saw the settlement's elder council standing in the center, 5 older alphas and betas, the people who made the decisions that kept everyone alive. Elder Torvin stepped forward, his weathered face grave. Elin Voss, he said, and his voice carried. What have you done? Elin's mouth went dry. The hall felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in as dozens of eyes bored into her. I don't understand, she said, though her voice came out weaker than she intended. Don't play stupid. That was Darren, pushing through the crowd to stand beside the elders. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with something close to fury. We all heard it, all night long, that thing, howling, calling your name. The room erupted in murmurs. Elin caught fragments, unnatural, cursed, brought something back, each word landing like a physical blow. Elder Torvin raised his hand and the noise died down. Elin, you went into the storm yesterday, against all sense, against all safety. Where did you go? She could lie. Should lie, probably. But the exhaustion weighing her down made the truth easier. I heard something, Elin said. Something dying. I went to find it. And did you? Elder Marin spoke now, a sharp-featured woman with gray streaking her dark hair. Find it? Yes. What was it? Elin hesitated. How could she explain? The massive wolf, the impossible presence, the song that had poured out of her without thought or permission? A wolf, she said finally. Injured. Dying. And you helped it. Torvin's tone made it an accusation, not a question. I sang to it. The words felt stupid coming out of her mouth, inadequate to describe what had actually happened. An old passing song, to ease, to make it less alone. Silence stretched. Then someone laughed. A bitter, disbelieving sound. She sang to it, Michel said. She sang to a dying wolf, and now the whole mountain knows our location. Perfect. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Elder Jorik stepped forward, his massive frame blocking most of the light from the window behind him. Because what we heard, all night, was something calling. Not random howls, not animal distress. Calling. Your name, over and over, in a voice that made the foundations shake. Elin's knees felt weak. My name? Don't pretend you didn't hear it. Darren moved closer, and she could smell the fear sweat on him. Everyone heard it. Elin, clear as anything. Whatever you did out there, it worked. That thing isn't dead. And now it's looking for you. The truth of that sat in her chest like ice. She had felt something at the end, that connection, thin but real. The wolf pressing its muzzle against her heart. No one should die alone, she'd thought. Had she bound herself to something? Had her grandmother's song done more than ease a passing? I didn't mean to, Elin started, but Elder Marin cut her off. Intent doesn't matter. Results do. Whatever you've done, it's drawn attention to us. Dangerous attention, in the middle of a blizzard when we're already vulnerable. The storm broke this morning, someone called from the back. right after sunrise, like it was waiting. More murmurs, louder now. Elin felt the mood shifting, darkening. Fear was turning into anger, and she was the easiest target. So what do you want me to do? The words came out sharper than she intended, but she was too tired to soften them. I can't undo it. I can't make it unhappen. You can leave. Elder Torvin said it quietly, but the words hit like a hammer. Before whatever you've called down finds us. The room went silent again. Elin stared at him, not quite believing what she'd heard. Leave. It's calling for you, not us. If you're gone, maybe it'll follow. Maybe it'll leave the settlement alone. You're going to send her out there? A voice protested, surprisingly, Soren. Into the wild, alone, with something hunting her? She made this choice, Darren said. Let her live with it. I was trying to help. Elin's voice cracked despite her best effort. Something was dying, and I couldn't just leave it to what? Die in peace? Michael stepped forward. That's what things do out here, Elin. They die. We all die eventually. The trick is not taking everyone else with you when you go. She wanted to argue, wanted to scream at them that she'd spent her whole life being careful, being quiet, being exactly what they wanted, and it had never been enough. Never would be enough. But the words stuck in her throat. Elder Marin exchanged glances with Torvin, then nodded slowly. The council agrees. For the safety of the settlement, you need to go. Now, before nightfall. It's not even noon, Elin said numbly. Then you have time to prepare. Torvin's expression was granite. Pack what you can carry. We'll give you basic supplies, food, water, a blade. But you leave before dark. No exceptions. The finality in his voice left no room for argument. Elin looked around the room at faces she'd known her entire life, searching for someone, anyone who might speak up, who might say this was too far, too cruel. She found only fear and relief. Relief that the problem, that she, would be gone. Fine, she said, the word tasting like ash. I'll go. She turned and walked out before anyone could see her hands shaking. Her shack looked smaller than she remembered. Elin stood in the doorway, staring at the space she'd called home for the last 10 years. One room, barely insulated, with a cot, a small stove, and shelves holding her few possessions. Everything she owned could fit in 2 bags, maybe one if she was practical about it. She'd never realized how little that was until now. Her hands moved automatically, pulling down the canvas rucksack from its hook, stuffing in spare clothes, the worn blanket from her cot, the fire-starting kit she'd bartered for 2 winters ago. Her fingers were still stiff from the bandages, making every movement awkward and painful. Someone knocked on the doorframe. Elin turned to find Elder Torvin standing there, looking uncomfortable in a way she'd never seen him. Brought your supplies, he said, setting a bundle on the floor. Dried meat, hardtack, water skin. There's a knife, too. Not much, but it's more than I deserve for endangering everyone? Elin kept her voice flat. Thanks. Torvin flinched. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? Silence hung between them. The old man shifted his weight, looking around the sparse room. Your grandmother used to sing, he said finally, before she passed. Old songs, in the old tongue. Some people said she had a gift for it, that there was power in her voice. Elin's hand stilled on the rucksack. Why are you telling me this? Because maybe you have it too, that gift. Torvin met her eyes. And maybe that's what scares people. Not what you did, what you might be able to do. I don't know what I did. Elin turned back to her packing. I sang a passing song, that's all. But it didn't pass, did it? It came back. It called for you. He paused. Things like that don't happen by accident, Elin. Your grandmother knew that. She tried to teach you, didn't she, before we told her to stop? Elin's throat tightened. She'd forgotten that. The way the other families had complained when she was young, when her grandmother would teach her songs by the fire. The way they'd said it was unnatural, that Omega magic was dangerous, that children shouldn't learn such things. Her grandmother had stopped teaching her in public, but late at night, in private, the lessons had continued, until she died, leaving Elin with fragments of knowledge she didn't fully understand. She's gone, Elin said. Whatever she knew, she took with her. Maybe. Or maybe you're carrying more of it than you think. Torvin moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. This isn't what I wanted. But the settlement comes first. I know. Elin yanked the rucksack closed harder than necessary. Everyone always comes first except me. That's not fair, isn't it? She whirled to face him. I've spent my entire life trying to be useful, trying to earn a place here. And the first time something goes wrong, the first time I'm anything other than invisible, you throw me out. So tell me, Elder, what exactly should I think is fair about that? Torvin's jaw worked, but no words came out. That's what I thought. Elin slung the rucksack over her shoulder, picked up the supply bundle. I'll be gone within the hour. You can tell everyone they're safe now. She pushed past him, out into the pale sunlight of the storm's aftermath. The settlement looked strange under clear skies, almost peaceful. Snow lay thick and pristine over everything, unmarked except for the paths people had dug between buildings. Smoke rose from chimneys in thin gray columns. Somewhere, children were laughing. It could have been beautiful if Elin didn't know she was being exiled from it. She made her way to the edge of the settlement where the forest pressed close and the safety of walls and neighbors gave way to wilderness. A few people watched her go, some with relief visible on their faces, others looking uncomfortable but not uncomfortable enough to speak up. Darren stood near the tree line, arms crossed. Leaving already? That's what you wanted, isn't it? Elin didn't slow down. I wanted you to stop causing problems. He fell into step beside her anyway. Running into storms, singing to monsters, bringing down who knows what on our heads. I sang to a dying animal, that's all. Keep telling yourself that. Darren grabbed her arm, forcing her to stop. But we both know what you are, Elin. You're different, wrong, and wrong things attract wrong attention. She jerked her arm free. Then you should be happy I'm leaving. I am. But his expression didn't match his words. He looked almost conflicted. But if that thing comes back, if it tears through here looking for you, it won't. Elin had no idea if that was true, but she said it with conviction anyway. Whatever connection there is, I'll lead it away. That's what you want, right? For me to take the danger with me? Yeah. Darren stepped back. Yeah, that's what I want. He walked away without another word. Elin stood there watching him go, feeling nothing at all. Numbness had settled over her like a blanket, muffling everything. She turned toward this forest, took one step, then another. By the third step, she was past the last building. By the 10th, the trees had swallowed her whole. By the 20th, the settlement was gone, hidden behind snow and shadow. Elin kept walking. The forest was quiet in the way only winter forests can be. A heavy, expectant silence broken only by the occasional crack of ice or distant bird call. Snow muffled everything, turning the world soft and strange. Elin moved through it like a ghost, her breath puffing white in the cold air, her boots crunching with each step. She had no destination, no plan beyond away from the settlement, away from the people who'd made it clear she would never belong, away from whatever she'd called out of the storm. Except she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't moving away from it at all, that she was moving toward it. The sun was dropping toward the horizon when Elin finally stopped, her legs shaking with exhaustion. She'd pushed hard, covering more ground than she probably should have, driven by the need to put distance between herself and everything she'd known. Now that adrenaline was fading and exhaustion was crashing over her in waves, she found a sheltered spot beneath an overhang of rock, its surface dry and protected from the worst of the wind. Not perfect, but it would do. She dropped her pack, pulled out the fire-starting kit, and set about gathering deadwood from the surrounding area. Her hands were clumsy with cold and fatigue, and it took 3 tries to get the spark to catch. But eventually a small flame flickered to life, and Elin fed it carefully until she had a proper fire going. The warmth felt like a miracle. She settled back against the rock wall, pulling her blanket around her shoulders, and allowed herself to just breathe for the first time since waking up in the hall. Exiled. She was actually exiled. The reality of it hit her all at once, and for a moment she couldn't breathe past the tightness in her chest. She had nothing, no home, no people, no safety net, just the supplies in her pack and the wilderness stretching endless in every direction. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt empty, hollowed out. Maybe this was better. Maybe being alone in the forest was more honest than being alone in a settlement full of people who didn't want her. At least out here, she didn't have to pretend. Elin pulled out a piece of hardtack from her supplies, forced herself to eat it despite having no appetite. She needed to keep her strength up, needed to... A sound cut through the silence, soft, almost inaudible. Footsteps. Elin's hand went to the knife at her belt, her body tensing as she scanned the darkening forest. Nothing moved, nothing she could see, but the footsteps continued, slow and deliberate, circling her position. "I have a weapon," she called out, hating how her voice shook, "and I know how to use it." A lie. She barely knew which end of the knife to hold. The footsteps stopped. Then from the darkness between the trees, a voice. "No, you don't." Elin's blood turned to ice. The voice was male, deep and rough, speaking in a language she understood but had never heard anyone actually use. The old tongue, the one her grandmother had taught her songs in. "Who's there?" She stood, knife held in front of her with trembling hands. "You know who I am." The voice came closer. "You saved me. You sang to me. You bound yourself to me." "Oh no, oh no, no, no." "The wolf," Elin whispered. "Yes." A figure emerged from the shadows, and Elin's knife clattered to the ground. It was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with a predator's grace despite obvious injuries. Dark hair fell past his shoulders. His face was sharp, angular, marked with scars that spoke of violence survived. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch. Pale gold, almost white, burning with an intensity that felt familiar. The same eyes the wolf had. He wore minimal clothing despite the cold. Rough leather pants, boots, nothing else. And she could see the bandages wrapped around his ribs, the way he favored his left leg. The same injuries the wolf had. "This isn't possible," Elin said faintly. And yet, the man, the wolf, stopped a few paces away, watching her with those unsettling eyes. "Here I am." You were dying." "I was." He tilted his head, the gesture oddly canine. "Then you sang, and I didn't die. I should thank you for that." "I don't understand." Elin's legs felt weak. She sat down heavily, not taking her eyes off him. "You were a wolf, a massive wolf, and now you're a man." "Yes." He moved closer, settling on the opposite side of the fire with a grimace of pain. "Both are true. I am both." "How?" "Does it matter?" "Yes!" The word burst out of her. "Yes, it matters!" "I sang to what I thought was an animal, and now you're telling me you're, what, a shapeshifter? Some kind of alpha." The word carried weight, ancient and undeniable. "I am Alpha. Have been for longer than your settlement has existed. And you, little Omega, saved my life. More than that, you bound us together, whether you meant to or not." The connection. That thread she'd felt, thin as spider silk but growing stronger. "I didn't mean to," Elin said. "I was trying to help, that's all." "I know." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. But intent and result are different things. Your song didn't just heal, it claimed, and I, half dead and desperate, accepted. Elin's mind raced. The howling. Last night. That was you calling my name. Yes. Why? Because the bond demanded it. He leaned back against a tree, pain evident in the tight lines around his mouth. "Because I needed to find you. Because you left me alone in the storm, and every instinct I have screamed to locate my..." He stopped, jaw working. "To locate you." "You're what?" Elin pressed. "What were you going to say?" The man's eyes met hers, and she saw something dangerous there, something possessive. "Later," he said. "First, you need to understand what you've done. I saved your life. You did more than that. You created a bond between us, a pack bond, though there are only two of us. I can feel you now. Your fear, your exhaustion, your..." He paused. "Your loneliness." Elin flinched. "That's impossible." "Is it? Close your eyes." "What?" "Close them. Focus. Tell me what you feel." She should refuse, should tell him to leave, to go away, to let her be alone like she'd always been. But curiosity, and something deeper, something she didn't want to name, made her obey. Elin closed her eyes. At first, nothing. Just the sound of the fire, the cold air on her skin, her own heartbeat. Then, something else. A presence, separate from her but connected. She could feel pain, sharp and persistent. Could feel exhaustion that mirrored her own. And beneath it all, something fierce and protective and utterly foreign to her own emotions. Her eyes snapped open. I can feel you. And I you. He smiled, and it wasn't entirely human. That's the bond. It works both ways. And it's not going to break just because you want it to. Elin's hands clenched in her blanket. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I. But here we are. He shifted, wincing. Those wounds you healed? They're not fully healed. The bond helped, but I need time. Rest. And I need... He hesitated. I need you close. The bond gets uncomfortable when we're separated. How uncomfortable? Like being torn apart from the inside. His expression was grim. I tried to let you go, tried to stay away when I heard them exile you. Lasted about 3 hours before the pain got too bad. Elin stared at him. So what? You're just going to follow me around forever? Until the bond settles? Yes. He met her gaze squarely. Whether you like it or not. Though I'd prefer you like it. Makes things easier. I don't even know your name. Kyle. He said it like a declaration. Kyle Draven. And you're Elin Voss, I know. I heard them calling for you, screaming at you, driving you out. His expression darkened. They should have protected you. You're Omega. You're precious. And they threw you to the wolves. A bitter laugh. Literally, as it turns out. I'm not precious, Elin said automatically. I'm just powerful. Kyle leaned forward. Your song didn't just heal me, Elin. It brought me back from death. Do you understand? I was gone. Heart stopped. Blood freezing, and your voice pulled me back. That's not normal Omega magic. That's something else. Something rare. She didn't want to hear this. Didn't want to believe that she might be anything other than what she'd always been told. Broken, wrong, useless. I'm not powerful, she insisted. I'm nobody. You're mine. The words came out fierce, possessive. The bond says so. Your own power says so. And anyone who tells you different is a liar or a fool. Stop. Elin stood abruptly. Stop saying things like that. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me except that I made a mistake in a storm. Kyle stood too, slower, pain evident in every movement. I know you're alone. I know they hurt you, over and over, until you believed you deserved it. I know you went into a blizzard to save firewood for people who wouldn't piss on you if you were burning. And I know you stayed with a dying wolf because you couldn't bear the thought of anything dying alone. He took a step closer. That tells me everything I need to know. Elin's eyes stung. She blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Tonight, I want you to let me stay by your fire. I want you to accept that we're bound, at least for now, and I want you to stop looking at me like I'm going to hurt you. His expression softened slightly. I'm not your enemy, Elin. I never was. Then what are you? Kale was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle in a way that made her chest ache. I'm the person who's going to make sure you never feel worthless again. The sincerity in his words broke something inside her. Elin turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. You can stay, but don't say things like that. Don't make promises you can't keep. I don't make promises I can't keep. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Behind her, she heard Kyle settling back down by the fire, heard his breath hitch with pain from his injuries. The bond between them pulsed, warm and insistent, tying her to this stranger who was somehow not a stranger at all. And for the first time in her life, Elin wasn't entirely alone. She wasn't sure if that was better or worse. The night passed in fitful sleep and uncomfortable silence. Elin woke multiple times to find Kyle still awake, those gold eyes watching the darkness beyond their fire. Guarding. She should have been afraid, should have been planning to run the moment he slept. But exhaustion won out over fear, and each time she woke, she slipped back into sleep before she could act on any escape plans. Morning came gray and cold. The fire had burned down to embers. Elin sat up, her body stiff and aching, and found Kael already awake, staring into the dying flames. "You didn't sleep," she said. "Couldn't." He didn't look at her. "Too exposed here, too vulnerable. No one's following us." "You don't know that." Elin pulled her blanket tighter. "Why would they? They got what they wanted. I'm gone." "Because fear makes people stupid, and you made them afraid." Now he did look at her, and his expression was serious. "They heard me calling for you all night. They know something powerful is out here, tied to you somehow. Some of them will want to make sure that threat is eliminated." They wouldn't. But even as she said it, she wasn't sure. Darren had looked angry enough yesterday, and frightened people did frightening things. They might. Kael stood, moving stiffly. His bandages needed changing. She could see fresh blood seeping through. "We should move. Put more distance between us and them. You're hurt. I'll heal." "Not if you keep pushing yourself." Elin stood too, moved toward him before she could think better of it. "Let me look at those wounds." He tensed. "Why? Because I'm the one who healed them in the first place?" She reached for the bandages. "And because the bond apparently means your pain is my pain. So if you're suffering, so am I." Enlightened self-interest. Kael's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Fair enough." He let her unwrap the bandages, revealing the wounds beneath. They looked better than yesterday. The gashes were closed, the swelling reduced, but they were still angry and red, and when she touched the skin around one, Kael hissed. "Sorry," she muttered. "It's fine, just sensitive." Elin cleaned the wounds as best she could with water from her canteen and strips torn from her spare shirt. Her hands worked automatically while her mind wandered. This was surreal. She was in the wilderness, tending to wounds on a man who'd been a dying wolf 2 days ago, bound to him by magic she didn't understand. Her life had gone from predictable misery to complete chaos in less than 72 hours. "You're thinking too loud," Kael said. "What?" "The bond. I can feel you spiraling." He caught her wrist gently. "Ask whatever you're afraid to ask." Elin pulled her hand back, busying herself with tying fresh bandages. "Why me?" "I told you. You saved my life." "That's not what I mean." She sat back on her heels, looking up at him. "You're obviously someone important, powerful. Why would the bond choose someone like me, someone worthless?" Kael's expression went hard. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Don't call yourself worthless." He leaned down, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Bonds don't form randomly. They recognize compatible souls, compatible power. If we're bound, it's because some part of you matches some part of me, and I am not worthless. Which means neither are you." "You don't know that." "I know what I feel through the bond. Strength, stubbornness, courage that you don't even recognize in yourself." His voice gentled. "You went into a storm to save a stranger. You stayed with what you thought was a dying animal because it shouldn't be alone. That's not worthless. That's..." A sound cut through the morning air. Distant but distinct. Voices. Multiple voices. Kael's head snapped up, his entire body going tense and alert. In that moment, he looked more wolf than man. "They're coming," he said quietly. "Who?" "Your people. Hunting party, if I had to guess." He stood, moved to the edge of their small camp. 3, maybe 4. Armed. Following our tracks. Panic clawed at Elin's throat. "They're hunting us?" "They're hunting you. I'm just the convenient monster they can blame." Kael turned back to her. "We need to go. Now." Elin scrambled to pack her things, hands shaking. This couldn't be happening. They'd exiled her. Wasn't that enough? But Kael was right. Fear made people stupid, made them cruel. They were still shoving supplies into packs when the first arrow whistled past Elin's head, embedding itself in a tree trunk with a solid thunk. She froze. "Move!" Kael grabbed her arm, hauling her behind the rock overhang as a second arrow followed the first. "Come out!" A voice she recognized. "Darren! Come out and this ends clean!" "Clean," Kael muttered. "Right." Another arrow, this one closer. Elin's heart hammered. "Elin Voss!" Darren again, closer now. "You brought a monster to our door. You think we're going to let that stand? Let you walk away?" I left, Elin shouted back before Kale could stop her. I did what you asked. I'm gone. Not far enough. A different voice, Mikhail. And not dead enough. The words hit like a physical blow. Kale's hand tightened on her arm. They're not here to talk. We need to run. I can't. You can. He pulled her upright, his eyes fierce. And you will. Because I didn't survive a blizzard and your miracle song just to watch you give up now. Another arrow. This one grazed Kael's shoulder, drawing blood. He didn't even flinch. Run, he said again. I'll slow them down. No! Elin grabbed his arm. You're hurt. You can't fight 4 men. I'm not a man right now. Kael's eyes were changing, shifting, the gold brightening to something inhuman. Run, Elin. North. Don't stop. I'll find you. Kael, trust the bond. Run. He shoved her, hard, and Elin stumbled backward into the trees. Behind her, she heard Kael's voice change, deepen, become something between human and animal. Heard the sound of transformation, heard Darren scream. Then she was running, her pack forgotten, her knife left behind, running through snow and trees with no destination except away. Behind her, sounds of violence, growls, shouts, the meaty thunk of impact. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs gave out, until she collapsed in the snow miles from where she'd started. And through the bond, thin and strained but holding, she felt Kael, alive, fighting, calling her north, always north. Elin stumbled through the forest, gasping for air that felt like knives in her chest. Her boots caught on hidden roots beneath the snow, sending her sprawling twice before she forced herself to slow down, to think instead of just react. North. Kael had said north. She pulled herself upright using a tree trunk, her hands numb even through her gloves. The sounds of fighting had faded behind her, either too far away now or finished entirely. She didn't want to think about which. Through the bond she felt him, still alive, still moving, pain radiating from multiple sources, but nothing fatal. Not yet. Come on, she thought desperately. Catch up, find me. But Kael's presence through the bond felt distant, distracted. Still dealing with the hunting party, probably. Keeping them away from her. Elin forced herself to keep moving, though every instinct screamed at her to go back, to help, to do something other than run like a coward. But what could she do? She had no weapons, no fighting skills. She'd just be a liability. The trees thinned ahead, opening into a small clearing where a frozen stream cut through the landscape. Elin approached it carefully, listening for any sounds of pursuit. Nothing. Just wind through branches and her own ragged breathing. She knelt by the stream, broke through the thin ice with her elbow, and cupped water to her mouth. It was so cold it made her teeth ache, but she drank anyway, trying to calm her racing heart. A branch snapped behind her. Elin spun, nearly slipping on the ice. A woman stood at the edge of the clearing, older, maybe 50, with silver-threaded hair and sharp features. She wore traveling clothes, practical, well-worn, and carried a walking staff that looked more weapon than aid. Easy, the woman said, raising one hand. I'm not with the hunting party. Who are you? Elin's voice came out harsh. Vera, I live about 2 miles west of here. Heard the commotion. The woman's eyes were shrewd, taking in Elin's disheveled appearance, her lack of supplies. You're the girl from Thornhaven Settlement, the one they exiled. Elin's jaw tightened. News travels fast. It does when you're connected to the right people. Vera moved closer, and Elin noticed she walked with a slight limp. Word is you did something forbidden, bound yourself to something powerful and dangerous. I saved someone's life, that's all. Is it? Vera tilted her head. Because the way I heard it, you brought a dead alpha back from the other side. That's not healing magic, that's resurrection. That's something the old ones could do, before the purges. Elin went still. The purges? You don't know. Vera's expression shifted to something like pity. Of course you don't. They wouldn't teach you. Wouldn't want you knowing what you actually are. What I am is cold, tired, and being hunted by people who used to be my neighbors. Elin started to turn away. I don't have time for riddles. You're a singer. Vera's words stopped her cold. Capital S. Not just someone who can carry a tune. You're one of the bloodline. Your grandmother was too, though she hid it well after they killed her sister for it. The world seemed to tilt. My grandmother's sister was burned 50 years ago. For using her voice to heal a child the elders had declared cursed. Vera's voice was matter of fact, but her eyes held old pain. They called it unnatural, said she was playing at being something divine, made an example of her in the town square. Elin felt sick. I didn't know. Your grandmother made sure you didn't. She taught you the songs, but not the history, probably hoping you'd never be powerful enough to draw attention. Vera laughed bitterly. Didn't work out that way, did it? Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what you're up against. The settlements around here, they have long memories, and they remember what singers can do when they're fully trained, how they can heal with a word, kill with a scream, bind souls together, or tear them apart. Vera stepped closer. You're dangerous, girl. Not because you want to be, because you are, and they'll kill you for it if they catch you. They're trying. Elin gestured vaguely south. There's a hunting party. I know. I passed their camp this morning. 4 men, well armed, tracking you. Vera paused. Though I'm guessing there's fewer than 4 now, given the screaming I heard. The bond pulsed. Kale was closer now, moving fast. Elin hesitated. What was Kale exactly? The person I'm bonded to. He stayed back to slow them down. The Alpha. Vera's eyes sharpened. Kale Draven, if rumors are right. Elin's head snapped up. You know him? Know of him. Everyone in the Northern Territories knows of him. He rules the Black Pine domain, or did, before he went missing 3 weeks ago. Vera studied Elin with new interest. People have been searching for him. His disappearance left a power vacuum, made things complicated. What kind of complicated? The kind where rival alphas start circling, looking for weaknesses. The kind where alliances fracture and territories get contested. Vera's expression was grim. If you've bound yourself to him, you're not just running from a settlement of frightened villagers anymore. You're caught up in something much bigger. Elin wanted to laugh or cry. She wasn't sure which. Of course I am. Can you break the bond? I don't even know how I formed it. Then you're stuck with him, and he with you. Vera leaned on her staff. Which means you need to get north fast, to Black Pine territory. It's the only place you'll be safe. Safe from what? The hunting party? From everyone who's going to want to use you once they realize what you are. Vera's voice was urgent now. A singer bonded to an alpha? That's power, girl. Real power. The kind that changes the balance of territories. And power like that makes you either an asset or a threat. Nothing in between. Before Elin could respond, Kael burst from the tree line in human form, breathing hard, blood streaking his chest and arms. His eyes found her immediately, and relief flooded through the bond so strongly it nearly buckled her knees. Then he saw Vera, and his expression went cold. Who the hell are you? Vera Strand, hermit, healer, and apparently the only person trying to keep your mate alive. Vera didn't seem intimidated by the aggressive alpha energy rolling off him. You're Draven. I am. Kael moved to Elin's side, putting himself partially between her and the stranger. And she's not my mate. Yet. Vera's smile was knowing. But the bond's fresh. Give it time. Give it pressure. See what happens. The hunting party, Elin started, won't be following. Kael's voice was flat. 2 are dead. 1's too injured to travel. The last one ran. Elin's stomach twisted. You killed them. They were trying to kill you. No apology in his tone. I'm not sorry. She should be horrified. Should feel something about the deaths of men she'd known her whole life. But all she felt was tired. We need to move, Vera said. The one who ran will bring others, and not just from Thornhaven. Word of this is going to spread. By nightfall, every settlement within 50 miles will know there's a singer on the loose bonded to Draven. Some will want you dead. Others will want to control you. Then what do you suggest? Kael asked, his tone making it clear he didn't trust her. I suggest you head to my cabin. It's warded. Not perfectly, but enough to hide you for a day or two while you figure out your next move. Vera started walking west without waiting for agreement. And I suggest you let me teach the girl how to actually use her voice before someone forces her to use it wrong. Elin and Kael exchanged glances. We don't know her, Kael said quietly. We don't know anyone. Elin looked in the direction Vera had gone. And she's offering help. That's more than anyone else has done. Kael's jaw worked. Through the bond, she felt his reluctance, his instinct to protect warring with the practical need for shelter and information. If this is a trap, he started, then we deal with it together. Elin surprised herself with the certainty in her voice. But right now, she's the only option we have. Kael studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Together. I'm holding you to that. They followed Vera west. The cabin was smaller than Elin expected and better hidden. Tucked into a narrow valley surrounded by rock formations that created natural barriers, it would be nearly impossible to spot unless you knew exactly where to look. Home sweet home, Vera said, pushing open the door. It's not much, but it survived 3 Alpha territorial wars and 2 purge attempts, so it's got that going for it. The interior was cluttered but organized, shelves lined with jars of herbs and preserved foods, bundles of dried plants hanging from the rafters, a large hearth that dominated one wall. Books were stacked everywhere, old volumes with cracked spines and faded titles. Sit, Vera commanded, pointing at chairs near the fire. I'll make tea. You look half frozen. Kael remained standing, his eyes scanning the room for threats. Elin sank into a chair, her legs finally giving out. The warmth from the fire felt like a blessing. Vera moved around the kitchen area with practiced efficiency, and soon the kettle was heating and 3 cups were lined up on the table. So, she said, settling into her own chair, let's talk about what you actually did in that storm. Elin recounted the story, finding the wolf, the song, the unexpected healing. Vera listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious as the tale progressed. Your grandmother taught you the passing song, Vera said when Elin finished. Did she teach you what it actually does? She said it eases death, makes the transition peaceful. That's one function, but the passing song is older than that. It's not just about death. It's about thresholds, boundaries between states of being. Vera poured tea, the liquid steaming. Life and death, yes, but also human and wolf, bound and free, mortal and something more. Kael leaned against the wall. You're saying she didn't just heal me, she changed me. I'm saying the bond you share is deeper than normal pack bonds because she sang you across a threshold. You were dying. More than dying, already crossing over. She called you back. And in doing so, she tied herself to you in a way that's almost impossible to break. Almost, Kael repeated, but not completely. Death would break it. Vera's tone was casual, but her eyes were sharp. Either yours or hers. That's the only way. Silence fell over the cabin. Great, Elin said finally. So I'm stuck. You both are. Vera sipped her tea. But it's not without benefits. The bond will make you stronger, both of you. Her singing will be more powerful with you as an anchor. Your alpha abilities will be enhanced by her omega energy. If you learn to work together instead of against each other, you could be formidable. I don't want to be formidable, Elin said. I want to be left alone. Too late for that. Well, Vera set down her cup. The moment you saved Draven, you became a player in a game much bigger than yourself. Now you can either learn the rules and play to win, or you can let others use you as a game piece. Those are your options. Kael pushed off from the wall. What about Blackpine? Is my territory secure? For now. Your second Lyra has been holding things together. But there are challenges. Rothak from the eastern ranges has been testing your borders. And there are rumors that the southern packs are forming an alliance. Vera's expression was grave. Your absence has created exactly the kind of instability you spent years preventing. Then I need to get back. You need to heal first, and you need to bring her with you, properly bonded and trained. Otherwise, showing up with a half-wild singer who doesn't know her own power will cause more problems than it solves. Elin stood abruptly. Stop talking about me like I'm not here. So both of them looked at her. I'm right here, she continued, anger warming her voice. And I'm tired of people making decisions about my life without asking what I want. What do you want? Vera asked, genuinely curious. The question stopped Elin cold. What did she want? She'd spent so long just surviving, just trying to be useful enough not to be discarded, that she'd never considered having actual desires beyond basic safety. I want... She struggled for words. I want to understand what I am, what I can do. I want to not be afraid all the time, and I want people to stop trying to kill me for existing. Reasonable goals, Vera said. Harder to achieve than you might think, but reasonable. Kale moved to Elin's side. Through the bond, she felt his concern, his frustration at being unable to simply fix this for her. Teach her, he said to Vera. Whatever she needs to know to protect herself, I'll pay whatever price you ask. I don't want your money, Draven. Vera stood, moved to one of her bookshelves. But I will teach her, on one condition. What? Vera pulled down a worn journal, its leather cover cracked with age. When this is over, when you're back in Blackpine and secure in your power, you remember that singers aren't the threat the settlements make them out to be. You remember that they deserve protection, not persecution. Done. Kael didn't hesitate. Just like that? Vera looked skeptical. I'm bonded to one. You think I'm going to let anyone hunt people like her? His hand found Elin's, squeezed gently. I protect what's mine. That extends to anyone who shares her gift. Something warm spread through Elin's chest. Not just the bond, something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Vera studied them both, then nodded. All right, we'll start tomorrow. Tonight, you both need rest. Real rest. The hunting party's death will buy you a day, maybe two, before things get complicated again. Things are already complicated, Elin muttered. Oh, sweetheart. Vera's smile was sad. You have no idea how complicated they're about to get. Night fell fast in the mountains. Vera showed them to a small back room with 2 narrow cots and threadbare blankets. It's not luxurious, she said, but it's warm and safe. That's more than most can say right now. When she left, closing the door behind her, Elin stood awkwardly in the middle of the room. Kale took one cot without comment, sitting to remove his boots with a grimace of pain. You should let me look at those wounds again, Elin said. They're fine. You're bleeding through the bandages. Elin! He looked up at her and the exhaustion in his face was startling. I'm fine, or I will be. Just sit down, please. She sat on the other cot, suddenly aware of how small the room was, how close they were. Thank you, she said quietly, for fighting them, for protecting me. You don't need to thank me for that. Yes, I do. You barely know me. You could have let them take me, broken the bond however it needed to be broken, and gone back to your life. Kale's laugh was harsh. You think it works that way? You think I could just watch them hurt you and walk away? I don't know how any of this works. He was quiet for a moment, then leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The bond isn't just magic, Elin. It's instinct. Every part of me recognizes you as pack, as mine to protect. The thought of someone hurting you makes me want to tear the world apart. He met her eyes. That's not going away, ever, whether you want it or not. That's terrifying. For you or for me? Both. A slight smile crossed his face. Fair enough. Elin pulled her knees up to her chest. Vera said the bond will get stronger. What does that mean? It means we'll be more connected, more aware of each other. Eventually, we might be able to communicate without words, share thoughts, feelings, maybe even memories. He paused. It also means the physical distance we can tolerate will shrink. Right now, being a few miles apart causes discomfort. Eventually, being in different rooms might be painful. So we'll be stuck together constantly. Yes, that's not what I wanted. I know. Kael lay back on the cot, staring at the ceiling. But it's what we have. We can fight it and make ourselves miserable, or we can accept it and make the best of it. You make it sound easy. It's not, but I've survived worse. So have you. Elin watched him, the stranger who was somehow becoming less strange by the hour. Through the bond, she could feel the edges of his thoughts, concern for his territory, worry about her safety, and beneath it all, a bone-deep loneliness that mirrored her own. Kael? What were you doing out there, in the storm? How did you get so injured? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, ambush. Rothak's pack crossed into my territory during the blizzard, probably thinking I wouldn't notice in the chaos. I caught them, chased them back across the border, but they were ready for me. Laid traps. His voice was flat, emotionless. Caught me in wolf form, away from my own pack. Worked me over pretty thoroughly. Left me to die in the storm. Figured the cold would finish what they started. But I found you instead. But you found me instead. He turned his head to look at her. Luck? Fate? I don't know, but I'm grateful for it, even if the circumstances are complicated. Complicated is an understatement. Yeah. His eyes closed. Get some sleep, Elin. Tomorrow, Vera starts teaching you, and something tells me it's not going to be gentle. Elin lay back on her own cot, pulling the thin blanket over herself. Through the bond, she could feel Kael's presence like a warm coal in her chest. Steady, reassuring, constant. For the first time since the blizzard, she felt almost safe. It wouldn't last. She knew that. But for now, in this small cabin with wards she didn't understand and allies she wasn't sure she could trust, she let herself rest. Sleep came easier than she expected. Vera woke them before dawn. Up, she said, banging on the door. Training starts now. Elin groaned, every muscle protesting as she sat up. Beside her, when had he moved to her cot? Kael was already awake, his body tense. You moved, she said. Bond got uncomfortable. You were having nightmares. He stood, apparently unconcerned by the implications. I stayed on top of the blanket. Didn't touch you. I wasn't accusing that. I know, just clarifying. He headed for the door. Come on, let's see what the old woman has planned. Vera was waiting in the main room with bread, cheese, and tea laid out. Eat fast. We have a lot to cover and not much time. How much time do we have? Kael asked, accepting a mug of tea. A day. Maybe 2 if we're lucky. Vera's expression was grim. I have contacts in the settlements. Word is already spreading about what happened with the hunting party. By tomorrow, there will be organized search groups. They'll find this place eventually, wards or no wards. Elin's appetite vanished. So what's the plan? The plan is I teach you the basics of singer magic, enough that you can defend yourself and not accidentally kill anyone when you panic. Then you and Draven head north to Blackpine as fast as possible. Vera bit into her bread. Once you're in his territory, surrounded by his pack, you'll be safer. Not safe. Nothing's truly safe anymore, but safer. And if we're found before we reach Blackpine, Elin asked, then you use what I teach you and you pray it's enough. Vera finished her tea. Now eat. You'll need your strength. The first lesson started an hour later, outside in the cold morning air. Singing isn't about melody, Vera explained, pacing in front of where Elin stood shivering. It's about intention, about shaping reality with your will and using your voice as the tool. The words matter less than what you mean when you sing them. My grandmother never said that. Your grandmother was trying to keep you safe by keeping you ignorant. I'm trying to keep you alive by making you dangerous. Vera stopped pacing. There's a difference. Now, I want you to sing. Anything. Doesn't matter what. Elin hesitated, suddenly self-conscious with both Vera and Kael watching. Sing, Vera commanded. Elin opened her mouth and started the passing song, the one she'd sung to Kael. Her voice shook at first, uncertain, but grew stronger as the words came back to her. The air around them changed, grew heavier, more charged. Kael's eyes widened. Stop, Vera said, and Elin cut off mid-word. Do you feel that? The way the air responded? Maybe? You're pulling at the fabric of things, gently, because you don't know what you're doing, but you're doing it. Vera moved closer. Now I want you to do it on purpose. Sing the same words, but this time focus on what you want to happen. Pick something small, make that blade of grass move, warm the air, something. Elin looked at the grass poking through the snow near her feet, took a breath. She sang again, and this time she focused everything on that single blade of grass. Move, bend, react. The grass trembled. Then it grew, shooting up 6 inches in the span of 3 seconds, green and vibrant against the white snow. Oh, hell, Elin breathed, cutting off the song. Good. Vera's smile was fierce. You have power, raw, untrained, but real. Now we refine it. They worked through the morning, Vera pushing Elin to try different intentions, different effects, growing things, warming the air, creating small gusts of wind. Each time, Elin's voice shaped the world around her in small but undeniable ways. By midday, she was exhausted and exhilarated in equal measure. Break, Vera announced. You're getting sloppy. Elin collapsed on a fallen log, breathing hard. Kyle approached with a water skin. That was incredible, he said quietly. That was terrifying. Elin drank deeply. What if I can't control it? What if I hurt someone? Then you learn control. That's why we're doing this. He sat beside her. But for what it's worth, I think you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. The bond talking? Common sense talking. He nudged her shoulder gently. You've survived this long despite everything. You'll survive this too. Before she could respond, Vera called out, Break's over. We're moving to defense now. The afternoon lessons were harder. Vera taught her how to use her voice as a weapon, sharp, focused bursts of sound that could stun or disorient. Sing like you mean to hurt, Vera instructed, like you're angry, like you're protecting something. Elin tried, failed, tried again. You're holding back, Vera said. Why? Because I don't want to hurt anyone. Even if they're trying to kill you? Vera's expression was hard. Even if they're hurting someone you care about? Elin looked at Kyle, standing off to the side, watching with those intense gold eyes. Thought about the hunting party. Darren's voice saying she wasn't dead enough. Anger, hot and unexpected, flared in her chest. She sang. The sound that came out wasn't musical. It was harsh, discordant, sharp as broken glass. The tree Vera had designated as her target shuddered. Bark exploded off its trunk in chunks. Birds erupted from nearby branches, screeching. Then silence. Elin stared at the damaged tree, her hands shaking. Good, Vera said. That's what I needed to see. You can access it when pushed. Now we just need to make it deliberate instead of reactive. They worked until sunset, until Elin's voice was hoarse and her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Kyle caught her when she stumbled, lifted her easily despite his own injuries. Enough, he told Vera. She's done. For once, Vera didn't argue. Get her inside, feed her, let her rest. Tomorrow will be harder. Inside, Kyle set Elin down in a chair by the fire. She slumped, too tired to even sit up straight. Here. He pressed a mug of something warm into her hands. Drink. It was soup, thin but hot. Elin sipped it gratefully. Thank you, she managed. Stop thanking me. I can't help it. No one's ever... She cut herself off, not wanting to voice how foreign kindness felt. Kyle crouched in front of her, his eyes level with hers. Get used to it. I'm not going anywhere, and neither is basic decency. Through the bond, she felt his sincerity, his determination. It should have scared her. Instead, it made her want to cry. What's wrong? Kyle's hand found hers. Are you hurt? No, just... She laughed, the sound watery. I'm not used to this. Any of this. Someone caring if I'm tired or hungry or scared. It's weird. It shouldn't be weird. It should be normal. His jaw tightened. Your settlement was cruel. They made you think you weren't worth basic care. That's on them, not you. Kale, eat your soup, he said, standing. Then sleep. We'll figure out the rest later. That night the dreams came. Elin saw fire, heard screaming, watched as a woman who looked like her grandmother but younger burned in a town square while people cheered, watched as her grandmother, young, terrified, was pulled away by someone who looked like Vera. Hide it, a voice said. Never let them know what you are. Never let them see. The dream shifted. Now she was standing in a clearing surrounded by wolves. Not threatening, waiting, watching her with eyes that held human intelligence. One stepped forward, massive, black-furred, with pale gold eyes. Kyle. He shifted, became human, reached out his hand. You're not broken, he said. You never were. You're just finally becoming what you were meant to be. Behind him, more wolves. A pack. Dozens of them. All watching her. All waiting. For what? The dream shattered. Elin woke gasping, tangled in her blanket. The room was dark except for the dying embers of the fire. Kyle was on the other cot, but he was awake, watching her. Bad dream? He asked quietly. History lesson, I think. She sat up, shivering. About my grandmother, about what happened to her sister. Vera told you? Some. The dreams filled in the rest. Elin wrapped her arms around herself. They burned her alive, Kyle, for healing someone, for using her voice to save a child. I know. He moved to sit beside her. The purges weren't unique to your settlement. They happened all over. Singers, healers, anyone with gifts the Alphas couldn't control, thousands died. But why? Fear, power, the usual reasons humans do terrible things. He was quiet for a moment. My territory doesn't hunt singers. Never has. That's one of the reasons I've had so many challenges. Other Alphas see it as weakness. But I won't compromise on it. Not now. Not ever. Because of me. Because it's right. You just made it personal. His arms settled around her shoulders, warm and solid. Try to sleep. We leave tomorrow night. Tomorrow? But Vera said... Vera's wrong about the timeline. I can feel it through the bond. Your fear, your exhaustion. We can't stay here. We need to move before they find us. Can we make it to Black Pine? If we push hard, yes. It's 5 days on foot. 3 if we run part of it in wolf form. I can't turn into a wolf. No, but you can ride one. He met her eyes. If you trust me. Did she trust him? This stranger who'd been dying in the snow a few days ago? Through the bond, she felt his conviction, his absolute certainty that he would protect her, no matter what. Okay, she said. I trust you. His smile was small but real. Get some rest. Tomorrow, everything changes. He was right about that, but neither of them could have predicted how much. They left the cabin 2 hours before dawn, moving quietly while Vera was still asleep. Kyle left a note weighted down with coins, payment and thanks she hadn't asked for, but deserved. The forest was silent as they moved north, Kyle leading and Elin following, her breath puffing white in the frozen air. They'd been traveling for maybe an hour when Kyle suddenly stopped, his entire body going rigid. What? Elin whispered. Smell that? She sniffed, caught the faint scent of smoke. Fire? Too many fires, a camp, a large one. His expression was grim. They've set up a perimeter. They're not just searching anymore. They're laying siege. To what? Vera's cabin? To the entire northern passage. They're trying to box us in. Fear spiked through her. Can we get around them? Maybe. If we're smart and lucky. He looked at her. Or we can use you. What? Your voice. The defensive techniques Vera taught you. We could fight our way through. Fight through how many people? I don't know, 20, 30? Elin's stomach dropped. I can't fight 30 people. You can slow them down long enough for me to get you through. Kale's eyes were hard now, tactical. But it's risky. If you lose control, if the power spikes too high, you could kill them all. I don't want to kill anyone. I know, but we might not have a choice. He touched her face gently. Whatever happens, I'm with you. We survive this together. Agreed? Elin was about to answer when a new voice cut through the darkness. How touching. They spun. A man emerged from the trees, tall, powerfully built, with silver streaking his dark hair and eyes that glowed with alpha power. He wasn't alone. At least 15 others flanked him, all armed, all radiating predatory intent. Kale Draven, the man said, his voice carrying easily. I've been looking for you. Rothak. Kael's entire body had gone tense, coiled. You're outside your territory. Borders are flexible during times of transition, and with you gone, well... Rothak's smile was cold. Everything's in transition. His eyes shifted to Elin, and this must be the famous singer, the one who brought you back from death. She's prettier than I expected. More fragile, too. Kyle moved slightly, putting himself between them. Walk away, Rothak, this doesn't concern you. Doesn't it? You disappear. Mysterious Omega saves you. Suddenly there's a bonded pair powerful enough to shift the entire balance of the territories? Rothak laughed. That concerns everyone. I'm not interested in politics. But politics is interested in you. Rothak's expression hardened. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to surrender the girl to me. I'll keep her safe, protected. And you're going to return to Black Pine and announce your abdication. The territory will be divided between the surrounding packs. Everyone wins. Except us, Elin said, finding her voice. You, darling, get to live. That's more than you'd get from the hunting parties. Rothak's smile was patronizing. This way is cleaner, easier. No one else has to die. And if we refuse? Kyle asked, though his tone made it clear he already had. Rothak sighed. Then we take her by force, and you. He gestured, and the 15 others moved forward, surrounding them completely. You get to watch her be broken before we kill you. Your choice. The forest went absolutely silent. Elin felt Kyle's rage through the bond, felt his muscles coiling for the fight. But they were outnumbered, outgunned. Even with her voice, even with his strength, they couldn't win this. Kyle, she whispered, what do we do? His hand found hers squeezed once. We fight, he said, and we don't stop fighting until we're free or we're dead. Rothak's smile widened. I was hoping you'd say that. He raised his hand. The circle closed in, and Elin opened her mouth and sang. The sound that came from Elin's throat wasn't anything Vera had taught her. It bypassed training, bypassed thought, bypassed everything except pure survival instinct. It was a scream that carried every ounce of fear and fury she'd been swallowing her entire life. The first 3 men closest to her dropped like stones, hands clamped over their ears, blood trickling between their fingers. The others stumbled back, their aggressive advance breaking into chaos. Rothak's eyes widened. What the... Elin didn't let him finish. She sang again, this time shaping the sound into something sharper, more focused. The air itself seemed to ripple, a visible wave of force that slammed into the left flank of their attackers. 2 more went down. The rest scattered, shouting in confusion and pain. Kyle didn't waste the opportunity. He shifted mid-leap, bones cracking and reforming with sickening speed, and the massive black wolf hit the ground running. He tore through the gap Elin had created, taking down 1 man with a snap of jaws that was efficient and brutal. Stop her! Rothak bellowed, but his people were already trying. An arrow whistled past Elin's head. Another grazed her shoulder, drawing blood. The pain broke her concentration. Her song faltered. Immediately, the pressure she'd been exerting on their attackers lessened. They rallied, regrouping with the discipline of trained fighters. Again! Kyle's voice echoed in her head through the bond, urgent and desperate. Don't stop! But her throat was raw, her voice shaking. She'd pushed too hard too fast, and now her body was rebelling against the strain. Another arrow. This one would have hit her chest if Kyle hadn't appeared from nowhere, his wolf form taking the projectile in his shoulder instead. He yelped, a sharp sound of pain that cut through her like a blade. No! Elin's hands found his fur, blood already matting it black. Kyle... Touching, Rothak said, advancing now that she was distracted. But ultimately pointless. You can't fight all of us, girl, and your mate is already dying for the 2nd time this week. Rage flooded through Elin, hers and Kyle's both, mixing through the bond until she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. She looked up at Rothak, at his smug expression, at the men behind him readying another volley of arrows, and something inside her snapped. Not broke. Snapped into place. Like a lock opening. Like a door she'd been standing in front of her whole life finally swinging wide. Elin stood, placed herself between the wounded wolf and the advancing enemy, and opened her mouth. This time she didn't scream. She sang. The passing song. The one her grandmother had taught her in secret. The one she'd sung to Kyle in the storm. But this time she understood it. Really understood it. It wasn't about death. It was about transformation. About crossing thresholds. About change. And she could control which direction that change went. Her voice rose, clear and strong despite the rawness in her throat. The words were ancient, heavy with power she was only beginning to comprehend. The men charging toward her slowed, then stopped. Their weapons fell from suddenly numb fingers. One by one, they dropped to their knees, faces slack with something between terror and awe. Rothak fought it longer, his alpha will battling against the compulsion in her song. But even he faltered, his steps becoming uncertain. "What are you doing?" he managed, his voice strained. "What is this?" Elin didn't answer. She just kept singing. The song wrapped around them, through them, changing something fundamental in the air. She could feel it, the way her voice was reshaping reality, forcing these men to confront something they'd been running from, their own mortality, their own insignificance, their own fears laid bare and unavoidable. She was showing them death, not causing it, just showing them how close it always was, how fragile their strength really was. It was the most terrifying thing she'd ever done, and the most powerful. When she finally let the last note fade, the forest was silent except for ragged breathing and quiet sobbing. Every single one of Rothak's fighters was on their knees, tears streaming down faces that had been hard and aggressive moments before. Some were shaking. Others looked like they might be sick. Rothak himself had fallen to his knees, his face ashen. "Please," he whispered, the word broken. "Please. No more." Elin swayed, exhaustion hitting her like a physical blow. Behind her, Kyle shifted back to human form, grunting with pain as the arrow still embedded in his shoulder adjusted to his changed shape. "I think," he said, his voice rough, "that you've made your point." Elin looked at the broken fighters, at Rothak's terrified expression, and felt sick. "I didn't mean to." "You did what you had to." Kael's hand found her shoulder, steadying her. "They came to kill us. You showed them mercy by not doing the same." "That was mercy?" "They're alive, aren't they?" "Fair point." Rothak raised his head, met her eyes. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like respect and fear. Mostly fear. "I underestimated you," he said quietly. "Both of you." "Yes," Kael agreed. "You did. Will you make that mistake again?" "No." Rothak struggled to his feet, his legs visibly shaking. "No, I won't. He swallowed hard. "I yield. The challenge is withdrawn. Your territory is yours, Draven. I won't contest it. Swear it. On your pack. On your honor." "I swear." The words came out stronger now. "On my pack and my honor, I will not challenge Blackpine territory or its alpha." Kael studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Take your people. Leave. If I see any of you in my territory again, there won't be a second chance." Rothak didn't argue. He gathered his shattered fighters, those who could still walk helping those who couldn't, and retreated into the forest. Within minutes, they were gone. Elin stood there, still trying to process what had just happened. "Did I just," she started, "terrify a rival alpha into complete submission?" "Yes." Kael sat down heavily, grimacing as he reached for the arrow in his shoulder. "That was incredible, and absolutely horrifying. Remind me to never make you angry." "This isn't funny. I'm not laughing." He gripped the arrow shaft. "I'm going to pull this out. It's going to hurt, and I'm probably going to say some things I don't mean." "Wait, let me..." He yanked it out before she could finish, and his roar of pain echoed through the forest. Blood flowed freely from the wound. Elin dropped to her knees beside him, hands hovering uselessly. "What do I do?" "Pressure. Just pressure." His breathing was ragged. She pressed her hands against the wound, feeling warm blood soak through her fingers. Through the bond, his pain hit her like waves, making her stomach turn. "Kael, I don't know how to fix this. Sing." "What?" "Your song, the one you just used. It changes things. Maybe it can change this." His eyes met hers, gold dimming with pain and blood loss. "Please," Elin's hands were shaking. "I don't know if I can control it. What if I make it worse?" "You won't." His hand covered hers, warm despite everything. "I trust you." Those 3 words hit harder than they should have. Elin closed her eyes, took a breath, and began to sing. This time, she shaped the song carefully, focusing on healing instead of terror, on mending instead of breaking, on life instead of death. It was harder than the attack had been. Destruction came easily, creation required precision. But she felt the shift happening, felt the wound beneath her hands begin to close, the blood flow slowing, felt Kael's pain recede through the bond, replaced by something like wonder. When she opened her eyes, the wound was closed. Not perfectly. A scar remained, angry and red, but sealed, no longer life-threatening. "How do you feel?" she asked. Kale flexed his shoulder experimentally. "Like I got shot with an arrow and then had magic surgery, but alive. Definitely alive." He caught her hands, still bloody from the wound. "That was amazing. That was terrifying." "It can be both." He stood, pulling her up with him. "Come on. We need to put more distance between us and them before they remember they outnumbered us and decide round 2 sounds appealing." They walked for hours, Kael leading them through increasingly dense forest. Elin's mind kept replaying the confrontation, the way those men had fallen to their knees, the terror in their eyes. She'd done that, with just her voice. "Stop it," Kael said without looking back. "Stop what?" "Spiraling. I can feel it through the bond." "I made grown men cry, Kael. You made grown men recognize their own mortality. There's a difference." He glanced back at her. "What you did was a kindness, Elin. You could have killed them all. Probably should have, given what they intended for us. But you didn't. You just showed them truth they didn't want to see." "That doesn't feel kind. The best lessons rarely do." They reached a small stream as the sun began to set. Kael declared it safe enough to stop, and they made a quick camp. No fire, just cold rations and water from the stream. Elin washed the blood from her hands, watching it swirl away in the current. Her hands were still shaking. "Here," Kael offered her dried meat and hardtack. "Eat. You used a lot of energy today." She took the food mechanically, barely tasting it. "Talk to me," Kael said after a few minutes of silence. "About what?" "About whatever's making you look like you want to crawl out of your own skin." Elin set down the hardtack. "I don't know who I am anymore." "What do you mean?" 3 days ago, I was just Elin, the weird Omega nobody wanted, and now I'm—" She gestured helplessly. "This, whatever this is, someone who can make people kneel with a song, someone who can heal mortal wounds, someone who's bonded to an alpha ruler and apparently important enough that other alphas want to kidnap me. And that's bad? It's not me!" The words burst out. "I don't know how to be this person. I don't know what I'm supposed to do or how I'm supposed to act or—" "Elin," Kael's hands found her shoulders, firm and grounding. "You're still you. The power didn't change who you are. It just revealed what was always there. I was nobody. You were never nobody. You were just surrounded by people too blind to see what you were." His expression was fierce. The girl who went into a storm to save firewood for ungrateful neighbors, who stayed with a dying wolf because it shouldn't be alone, who just faced down 15 fighters without hesitation to protect someone she barely knows. That's who you are. The power is just a tool. You decide how to use it. Elin wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that she was still herself despite everything that had changed. But it was hard when even her own thoughts felt foreign. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. "Good. Fear keeps you careful." Kael released her shoulders, sat beside her. "But don't let it paralyze you. We have 2 more days to Blackpine. 2 days where anyone could try what Rothak did. You need to be ready." "I don't know if I can do that again." "You won't have to. Not exactly that way." He was quiet for a moment. "What you did today will spread. By tomorrow, every alpha within 100 miles will know there's a singer powerful enough to break their fighters with a song. Some will be smart and stay away. Others—" He trailed off. "Others will see it as a challenge." "Yes." Elin pulled her knees to her chest. "I really don't want to kill anyone." "Then we'll do everything possible to avoid situations where that's necessary." Kael stood, scanned the darkening forest. "Get some rest. I'll take first watch." "You should rest too. You were shot today. And you healed me. I'm fine." At her skeptical look, he added, "Fine enough to keep watch. Sleep, Elin. That's an order." "You can't order me around. As your alpha? Yes, I can. You're not my alpha. We're bonded. That's different." A smile tugged at his mouth. "Fair point. Then I'm asking. Please rest. For both our sakes." Put like that, she couldn't really refuse. Elin curled up on the cold ground, using her pack as a pillow, and closed her eyes. She didn't expect to actually sleep, but exhaustion dragged her under within minutes. She woke to voices. not Kael's. Multiple voices, speaking in low, urgent tones. Elin's eyes snapped open. Dawn light filtered through the trees. Kael was standing a few yards away, his body tense, facing three newcomers. Not attackers. These people looked different, tired, worn, but not aggressive. Two women and one man, all wearing travel-stained clothes and carrying minimal supplies. Can't be true, one of the women was saying. A singer powerful enough to break Rothak's entire force? That's impossible. I'm telling you what I heard. The man sounded insistent. My cousin was there. He saw it. Said she sang, and grown alphas fell to their knees, crying like children. But where would she have come from? The bloodlines were all destroyed in the purges. Obviously not all of them. The second woman noticed Elin sitting up. She's awake. All eyes turned to her. Elin stood slowly, acutely aware of how she must look, disheveled, exhausted, covered in dirt and dried blood. Is it true? The first woman asked, stepping forward. She was older, maybe 40, with graying hair and eyes that held desperate hope. Are you really a singer? Elin glanced at Kael, who gave a slight nod. Permission, maybe. Or just acknowledgement that there was no point hiding it. Yes, she said quietly. The woman's breath caught. Can you heal? Sometimes. I'm still learning. My daughter. The words came out in a rush. She's sick. Fever won't break. The settlement healer says there's nothing to be done, that we should just make her comfortable, but I can't. Her voice cracked. I can't just watch her die. Please. Kael moved between them. We're on a tight timeline. We can't afford delays. How far is your daughter? Elin asked, ignoring Kael's warning look. Half a day's walk, maybe less if we hurry. Elin, Kael's voice carried a clear warning. We don't have half a day. A child is dying, and we have our own survival to consider. I know. She met his eyes. But I can't just leave her, not if I might be able to help. What you did yesterday took everything you had. You're not recovered. Trying to heal someone in this state could kill you. Or it could save her. Elin turned back to the woman. What's your name? Mira. Hope and fear warred on her face. My daughter's name is Kara. She's 6. 6 years old. The same age Elin had been when her own mother died, leaving her with a grandmother who tried her best and a settlement that wished she didn't exist. Take us to her, Elin said. No. Kael's hand caught her arm. I can't protect you if we're split up or delayed. Then come with me. That's not Kael. She turned to face him fully. I have to do this. I have to at least try. If I can save her and I don't, I'll never forgive myself. Through the bond, she felt his frustration, his fear for her safety, but also his understanding. He closed his eyes, jaw working. 1 hour. That's all we can spare. If you can't heal her in that time, we leave anyway. It wasn't ideal, but it was something. Thank you, Elin said. Kael's expression was grim. Don't thank me yet. If this gets you killed, I'm going to be very annoyed. Despite everything, Elin almost smiled. They followed Mira and her companions through the forest at a quick pace. The settlement they reached was smaller than Thornhaven, maybe 20 buildings clustered around a central well. People stared as they passed, whispered. A few made warning signs. They know what you are, the man, introduced as Davin, said quietly. Word travels fast out here. Apparently, Elin muttered. Mira's home was at the edge of the settlement, a small cottage with smoke trickling from the chimney. Inside, a girl lay on a cot by the fire, her small face flushed with fever, her breathing labored. Kara. Elin knelt beside her, placed a hand on the child's burning forehead. How long has she been like this? She asked. 4 days. Mira hovered nearby, wringing her hands. She was playing in the snow, got wet and cold. The fever started that night and just kept getting worse. Have you tried anything? Everything. Willow bark for the fever, honey for her throat, cool compresses. Nothing works. Elin closed her eyes, focused on the bond between her hand and the child's skin. She could feel it, the infection burning through Kara's small body, her lungs filling with fluid, her heart working too hard. Without intervention, the girl had maybe a day left, 2 if she was lucky. I'll try, Elin said, but I can't promise anything. Anything you could do. Mira's voice broke. Please. Elin began to sing. The song came differently this time. Gentler. Less about forcing change and more about encouraging it. Asking the fever to break, the infection to recede, the body to remember how to heal itself. She sang of cool streams and fresh air, of strength returning and pain fading. Sang until her voice went hoarse, until sweat dripped down her face despite the cold, until she felt like she'd run for miles. Through it all, Cale stood at the door, watching, guarding. His presence through the bond was a steady anchor keeping her from losing herself in the song. When she finally stopped, Kara's breathing had eased. The flush in her cheeks had faded slightly. Elin checked her forehead, cooler. Not well, but better. The fever's breaking, she said, her voice barely a whisper. But she's not out of danger. Keep her warm, keep giving her water, and if she worsens again, I understand. Mira grabbed Elin's hands, tears streaming down her face. Thank you so much. Elin swayed, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. Cale was there immediately, his arm around her waist. We need to go. Wait. Mira disappeared into the back room, returned with a small pouch. It's not much, but take this. Herbs, dried meat, a little money, it's all I can offer. We can't, Elin started. Take it. Mira pressed the pouch into her hands. You saved my daughter. You could have walked past, could have ignored us, but you didn't. That deserves something. Cale took the pouch, tucked it into his pack. Thank you. Now we really do need to go. They left the cottage to find the entire settlement gathered outside. Elin froze. Easy, Cale murmured. They're just curious. An old man stepped forward, leaning heavily on a cane. Is it true? You're a singer? Yes, Elin said, too tired to lie. And you healed Kara? I helped. She's not fully recovered yet. The old man was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. We heard about Rothak, about what you did to his fighters. Elin tensed, waiting for accusations, for fear, for demands that she leave. Instead, the old man lowered himself carefully to one knee. Thank you, he said simply, for showing mercy when you could have shown none, for healing when you could have walked away, for being what the old songs said singers were supposed to be. Well, one by one, the others knelt too, not in fear, in respect. Elin stared at them, unable to process what she was seeing. They're kneeling for you, Cale said quietly, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Voluntarily. I don't understand. You gave them hope. Showed them that power doesn't have to mean cruelty. That's rare enough to be worth honoring. His hand found hers, squeezed gently. Get used to it. This is going to keep happening. I don't want people kneeling to me. Then tell them to stand. You're the singer. They'll listen. Elin looked at the kneeling crowd, at their upturned faces holding something she'd never seen directed at her before. Not fear, not contempt, reverence. Please stand, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. I don't deserve this. You do, the old man said, rising slowly. More than you know. They left the settlement to murmured blessings and grateful waves. By the time they were back in the forest, Elin's legs were shaking. We need to rest, Cale said. You said we didn't have time. That was before you nearly killed yourself healing a child. He guided her to a fallen log, made her sit. Rest. Just for a few minutes. Elin didn't have the energy to argue. That was stupid, Cale said after a moment, but his tone was gentle. Reckless. Dangerous. I know. But it was also probably the right thing to do. He sat beside her. You're going to be impossible to protect if you keep making decisions with your heart instead of your head. Would you have done differently? He was quiet for a long moment. No, probably not. Through the bond, she felt his resignation, his acceptance that this was who she was, someone who couldn't walk past suffering without trying to help, even when the smart thing would be to keep moving. We match, she said softly. Your protectiveness, my bleeding heart. We're both idiots. Cale laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. Yeah, we really are. They rested for 20 minutes, then pushed on. The forest grew denser as they traveled north, the trees older and larger, until they were walking through a woodland that felt ancient and untouched. "We're close," Kale said as afternoon faded toward evening. "Another few hours we'll be in Blackpine territory proper. Then you'll be safe." "Will I?" Elin asked. "Your people don't know me. They might not be happy about you bringing home a strange Omega. They'll adjust." His confidence was absolute. "And once they see what you can do, once they understand what you are, they'll protect you as fiercely as I do." Elin wanted to believe him. They crested a hill as the sun touched the horizon, and Kyle stopped. "There," he said, pointing. Elin followed his gesture and saw it, a settlement in the valley below, easily 3 times the size of Thornhaven. Smoke rose from dozens of chimneys. Lights were beginning to appear in windows, and at the center, a large building that could only be a meeting hall or manor house. "Blackpine," Kael said, and the pride in his voice was unmistakable. "My home, and now yours, if you'll have it." Before Elin could answer, a howl rose from the settlement below. Then another, and another, until the valley echoed with the sound of a pack calling to their alpha, calling him home. Kael's hand found hers, his grip warm and sure. "Ready?" he asked. Elin looked at the settlement, at the home she'd never thought she'd have, at the future spreading out before her, uncertain, terrifying, and somehow full of possibility. "No," she said honestly. "But let's go anyway." They descended toward Blackpine together, the Omega who'd learned she was powerful and the Alpha who'd learned she was precious, walking into whatever came next side by side. And for the first time in her life, Elin wasn't alone. The pack surrounded them before they'd taken 20 steps into Blackpine territory. Not threatening, cautious. Wolves emerged from the shadows, some in animal form, others human, forming a loose circle that tightened as Kael and Elin approached the settlement proper. A woman pushed through the crowd, tall and lean with dark hair braided tight against her scalp, and eyes that assessed Elin in one sweeping glance. She moved like a fighter, every step deliberate. "Kyle." Her voice carried relief and irritation in equal measure. 3 weeks. 3 weeks with no word, the entire territory thinking you were dead, and you just walk back in like nothing happened? "Lyra." Kael's tone was warm despite her anger. "Good to see you too." "Don't." She jabbed a finger at his chest. "Don't you dare charm your way out of this. Do you have any idea what I've been dealing with? Rothak probing our borders, the Southern Alliance making noise, your own people starting to question whether—" She stopped, seeming to notice Elin for the first time. "Who is this?" "Elin Voss. She saved my life." Kael's hand found Elin's, a clear statement of claim. "And she's bonded to me." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Lyra's eyes widened. "Bonded?" She said it like she was testing the word, as in pack bonded, or, "Does it matter?" Kael's voice carried an edge now. "She's under my protection. That extends to the entire pack. Anyone who threatens her answers to me." Lyra studied Elin with new intensity. "You're Omega." "Yes." Elin forced herself to meet the woman's gaze. "Is that a problem?" "Depends. Can you fight, hunt, contribute something other than—" She waved vaguely. "Whatever Omegas usually contribute?" "She's a singer," Kael said flatly. The murmurs stopped. Complete silence fell over the gathered pack. "That's not possible," someone said from the crowd. The bloodlines were destroyed. Clearly not all of them. Lyra circled Elin slowly, evaluating. "Can you prove it?" Elin's throat tightened. She was exhausted, still recovering from healing Kara, her voice raw from overuse. The thought of performing like some trained animal made her stomach turn. "She doesn't need to prove anything," Kael said. "I'm telling you what she is. That should be enough." "Should be. Isn't." Lyra stopped in front of Elin. 3 weeks, our alpha disappears. Now he shows up with an Omega he claims is bonded to him, claims is a singer, and expects us to just accept it? After Rothak's been spreading rumors that you found a source of power and were keeping it hidden, that you were planning to leverage it against the other territories? Rothak's a liar. Maybe, but his lies are believable right now. Lyra's expression was hard. "So yes, she needs to prove it, not because I don't trust you, but because the pack needs to see." Elin felt Kyle tense beside her, felt his instinct to protect warring with the political necessity Lyra was describing. "It's fine," Elin said quietly. "I'll do it." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." She squeezed his hand once, then released it, stepping forward. "What do you want me to do?" Lyra considered. "Something small. Prove you have the gift without exhausting yourself. Can you do that?" Could she? Elin looked around at the gathered pack, at faces ranging from skeptical to openly hostile. She was so tired, so done with proving herself to people who'd already decided she wasn't worth their time. But this was different. These people weren't like Thornhaven. They were Kyle's pack, his family. And if she was going to stay here, if she was going to make this work, she needed them to see her as something other than a burden. "There's a child in that group," Elin said, pointing to a small boy clutching his mother's hand. "He's sick. Cough that won't go away, probably getting worse at night." The mother's face went pale. "How did you—" "I can hear it in his breathing. It's subtle, but it's there." Elin approached slowly, knelt in front of the boy. He couldn't have been more than 4. "What's your name?" "Finn," the child whispered, half hiding behind his mother's leg. "Hi, Finn. I'm Elin. Can I try something that might make you feel better?" The boy looked to his mother, who nodded hesitantly. Elin placed her hand gently on Finn's chest and began to sing. Not the passing song. She didn't need that kind of power for this. Just a simple healing melody, barely more than a lullaby, asking the inflammation in his lungs to ease, the cough to quiet. It took less than a minute. When she stopped, Finn took a deep breath, clear and easy, no rattling wheeze. "Mama!" His face lit up. "I can breathe." The mother stared at Elin, tears forming. "Thank you. We've tried everything. Nothing worked, and you just—" It was minor, just needed the right push. Elin stood, swayed slightly as exhaustion hit her. Kyle was there immediately, steadying her. "Satisfied?" he asked Lyra. Lyra was staring at Elin with an expression somewhere between awe and wariness. "She's real, an actual singer." "I told you." "You did. But seeing it—" She shook her head. "This changes everything." "You understand that, right? When word gets out that Blackpine has a singer, every territory from here to the coast is going to react. Some will want alliance, others will want her dead. Then we make it very clear what happens to anyone who threatens her." Kale's voice was steel. "We?" Lyra raised an eyebrow. "You mean the pack?" "I mean anyone who considers themselves part of Blackpine territory. She's under our protection, all of us." Murmurs rippled through the crowd again, but this time they sounded different, less skeptical, more considering. An older man stepped forward, grizzled and scarred, with silver threading through his dark hair. "I fought in the purges, saw what they did to singers, to anyone who tried to protect them. Whole families burned because one child showed the gift." His eyes found Elin's. "If we're doing this, if we're sheltering you, we need to be ready for war, because that's what's coming." "War's been coming anyway," Kale said. "The Southern Alliance, Rothak's ambitions, the trade disputes with the Eastern packs. This just gives us an advantage we didn't have before." "Or a target?" The old man didn't look away from Elin. "What's your name, girl?" "Elin. Elin Voss." "I'm Marcus. I lead the border patrols." He moved closer, studying her face. "You look scared." "I am." "Good. Means you're smart." He glanced at Kyle. "She stays in the manor house, guarded at all times. No one gets near her without clearance. We treat this like a siege, even if the attackers haven't shown up yet." "Agreed," Lyra said immediately. "I'll organize the rotation. 24-hour watch, rotating guards, multiple positions." "Wait." Elin held up a hand. "Don't I get a say in this?" "No," Marcus and Lyra said simultaneously. Kale looked apologetic. "They're right. I know it's not ideal, but nothing. I'm not a prisoner." "You're not," Kyle agreed. "You're protected. There's a difference." "Is there?" Elin could feel frustration building. "Because it sounds like you're planning to lock me in a room and decide everything for me. Again." Silence fell. The pack watched to see how their alpha would handle being challenged. Kyle's jaw tightened, but when he spoke, his voice was calm. You're right. We're making decisions about your safety without asking what you want. So I'm asking now, what do you need? The question caught her off guard. I don't know. Then figure it out. But while you do, let us keep you alive, please. The please did it. That and the genuine concern in his eyes echoed through the bond. Fine, Elin said. Guards, security, whatever you think is necessary, but I'm not staying locked in a room. If I'm part of this pack, I contribute. I help. Otherwise, what's the point? Marcus's stern expression cracked slightly, almost a smile. She's got spirit, I'll give her that. More than spirit, Lyra muttered. Come on, let's get you both inside, fed and rested. Tomorrow we start figuring out how to keep Blackpine from becoming a war zone. The manor house was larger than Elin expected, a sprawling structure of stone and wood that had clearly been added to over generations. Lyra led them through hallways lined with pack history. Weapons, tapestries, carved names of previous alphas. This is yours, she said, opening a door to a large room with an actual bed, a fireplace, and windows overlooking the settlement. It's the best we have. It's perfect, Elin said, and meant it. Compared to her shack in Thornhaven, this was luxury. Kael's room is next door, Lyra continued, then paused. Unless you want to share? I mean, you're bonded, so… Next door is fine, Elin said quickly, feeling her face heat. For now, Kael added, and there was amusement in his voice. The bond will have other ideas eventually, but we can work up to that. Lyra laughed. Right. Well, food will be brought up shortly. Try to rest. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. She left, closing the door behind her. Elin stood in the middle of the room, suddenly overwhelmed. Everything that had happened in the past week crashed over her at once. The exile, the bond, the fighting, the healing, and now this. Safety, shelter. A room of her own that didn't feel like punishment. Hey. Kael's hand on her shoulder was gentle. You okay? I don't know. She turned to face him. This is real, isn't it? I'm actually here. Actually safe. As safe as I can make you. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Elin, I know this is a lot. I know you didn't choose any of this, but I swear to you, I will do everything in my power to make sure you never regret saving my life. I don't regret it. The words surprised her with their truth. Complicated? Yes. Terrifying? Absolutely. But regret? No. Something shifted in his expression, softened. Good. Because I don't regret the bond either, even though it's probably the most inconvenient thing that's ever happened to either of us. Elin laughed, the sound startled and genuine. Inconvenient is one word for it. Get some rest, Kael said. Real rest. In an actual bed, without worrying about being hunted or frozen. I'll be right next door if you need anything. He left, and Elin was alone. She stood there for a moment, then moved to the window. The settlement spread out below, lights twinkling in the growing darkness. People moving between buildings. Children playing in the square. Normal life, continuing despite everything. This could be her life now, her home, if she could protect it. The thought settled over her, heavy and certain. These people had taken her in, offered her shelter when they could have turned her away. Kael had bound himself to her, was risking his territory's stability for her safety. She owed them more than just hiding behind guards and letting others fight her battles. Elin turned from the window, an idea forming. Tomorrow, she'd show them what a singer could really do. Morning came with a knock on her door. Elin opened it to find Lyra holding a tray of food. Breakfast, she said, entering without waiting for invitation. Eat. Then we need to talk. Elin accepted the tray, eggs, bread, actual fresh fruit, and sat. About? About the fact that 3 different territories sent messengers overnight, all asking for confirmation that Kael has bonded to a singer. Lyra leaned against the wall. Word travels impossibly fast out here. By noon, the entire northern region will know. By evening, it'll have reached the coast. And that's bad? It's complicated. Some will see it as Blackpine becoming too powerful and want to act before we can leverage that power. Others will want alliance, protection, access to your abilities, and a few, she trailed off. A few will want me dead. Yes, no sugarcoating. The old fears run deep. Singers were powerful enough to challenge alphas, to reshape territories with a word. Some people would rather see the bloodlines extinct than risk that kind of power existing again. Elin set down her fork, appetite gone. So what do? We make a show of strength, demonstrate that attacking Blackpine would be costly, and we make it very clear that you're not just Kael's pet project. You're pack, with all the protection that implies. Lyra pushed off the wall. Which brings me to my next point. There's a gathering tonight. Leaders from the nearby territories, pack representatives, traders. It was already scheduled before Kael disappeared. Now it's become something else entirely. A chance for everyone to see me. Yes, and judge whether Blackpine's protection is genuine or political theater. Lyra met her eyes. I need to know, can you handle that? Being stared at, evaluated, probably challenged? Could she? Elin thought about Thornhaven, about years of being examined and found wanting, about Rothak's fighters falling to their knees, about Kara's fever breaking under her song. I can handle it, she said, but on one condition. What? I don't just stand there and look pretty. I contribute. I show them exactly what I can do. Elin stood, moving to the window. You want them to see strength? I'll give them strength. Lyra was quiet for a moment. What did you have in mind? A demonstration, real healing, real power, not performance, actual help. Elin turned back. I know there are people in Blackpine who are sick, injured, suffering. Bring them to the gathering. Let me show everyone what a singer actually is. That's risky. If you fail, I won't fail. Elin's voice was steady. Not at this. Healing is what I do best. Let me do it in front of witnesses, prove that singer magic isn't just destruction and terror. Lyra studied her, then nodded slowly. I'll talk to Kael, but if we do this, you follow our security protocols exactly. No deviations. Agreed. Good. Lyra headed for the door, paused. For what it's worth, I think you're braver than you give yourself credit for. Most Omegas in your position would be content to hide behind their alpha and let others handle the politics. I'm not most Omegas. No, you're really not, Lyra smiled. Welcome to Blackpine, Elin Voss. Try not to get yourself killed. The gathering hall was packed by the time evening fell. Elin stood in the back room with Kael, listening to the crowd noise through the walls, trying to keep her breathing steady. You don't have to do this, Kael said for the third time. Yes, I do. She adjusted the simple dress Lyra had found for her, nothing fancy, just clean and well made. They need to see me as part of the pack, not just your responsibility. They will. Eventually. But not all at once, not like this. Kael. She caught his hands. Stop. I know you want to protect me. I can feel it through the bond. But I need to do this. For me, not just for them. He closed his eyes, jaw tight. If anything goes wrong, then you'll be right there. Like always. She squeezed his hands. Trust me. Like I trusted you in the storm. That got through. Kael opened his eyes, and the fear there was almost hidden under determination. Together, he said. Together. They walked into the hall side by side. The noise died instantly. Hundreds of eyes turned to them. Pack members, visiting alphas, traders, representatives from a dozen different territories. Elin felt the weight of their stares like a physical thing. Kael led her to the front, where a raised platform gave them visibility over the entire hall. Lyra was already there, along with Marcus and several other pack leaders. Everyone, Kael's voice carried easily, pitched to command attention. Thank you for coming. I know many of you heard rumors about my absence, about what I found in the wilderness. Tonight, I'm here to confirm those rumors and introduce you to Elin Voss. He turned to her, and Elin stepped forward, forcing herself to stand tall despite every instinct screaming to make herself small. Elin is a singer, Kael continued, a true bloodline descendant, with power that hasn't been seen in generations. She's also bonded to me, which makes her pack. Any threat to her is a threat to all of Blackpine. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. An alpha near the front, older, with scars crossing his face, stood. That's a bold claim, Draven, and a dangerous one. Singers nearly tore the territories apart before the purges. What makes you think harboring one won't do the same? Because I've seen what she can do, Kyle said. And it's not destruction, it's healing, creation, protection. Words, the scarred alpha said. Show us proof. This was it, the moment Elin had asked for. She stepped to the edge of the platform. I can show you, but I need volunteers, people who are sick, injured, suffering. Bring them forward. Silence. No one moved. Then slowly, a woman approached carrying a child. My son, he hasn't walked since birth. His legs don't work right. May I try to help him? Elin asked gently. The woman hesitated, then nodded. Elin took the child carefully, settled him on the platform where everyone could see. The boy couldn't have been more than 3, his legs twisted at unnatural angles. She placed her hands on his small legs and began to sing. This time the song was different, stronger, more focused. She'd learned in the past few days what she was capable of, had started to understand the shape of her power. She sang of bones straightening, muscles strengthening, of a body remembering how it was supposed to work. The change was visible. The child's legs slowly, impossibly, straightened. The twisted angles corrected themselves. Gasps echoed through the hall. When Elin stopped singing, the boy stared at his legs, then carefully, tentatively, stood and walked 3 steps, then 4, before he stumbled and his mother caught him, sobbing. He walked, she whispered. He actually walked. The hall erupted, some in amazement, others in fear. More, someone shouted. Do it again. And they came. One after another, an old man with a leg that had never healed right after a break, a young woman with a persistent cough, a warrior with a shoulder injury that had ended his fighting days. Elin healed them all, not perfectly, not miraculously, but enough that the pain eased, the injuries improved, the suffering lessened. By the time she finished with the 7th person, she was swaying with exhaustion. Kale caught her before she could fall. Enough, he announced. She's done more than enough. But the crowd wasn't hostile anymore. They were staring at Elin with something close to wonder. The scarred alpha stood again. I've seen enough. Blackpine has my support. Anyone who threatens your singer will have to go through my territory to reach her. And mine, another alpha called. And mine! One by one, the visiting leaders pledged their support. Not all of them. Some remained silent, clearly uncomfortable, but enough that the message was clear. Blackpine had allies now, real ones. Kyle lifted Elin into his arms as she finally lost the battle with exhaustion. Thank you, he said to the crowd, for witnessing, for believing. Blackpine stands stronger tonight than it has in generations. He carried her out through applause and shouting, through a crowd that parted like water, back to the manor house in her room. You overdid it, he said, laying her on the bed. Worth it, Elin mumbled, already half asleep. Yes, it was. He pulled the blanket over her. Rest now, you earned it. Through the bond, as she drifted off, she felt his pride, his amazement, his absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. And for once, Elin agreed. 2 weeks later, Elin stood in the same gathering hall, but this time it was filled only with Blackpine Pack members. The visiting leaders had gone home, taking stories of the singer who healed with songs, and the alpha who protected her fiercely. This is a formal pack gathering, Kyle announced from the platform. Witnesses required for what comes next. Elin stood beside him, confused. He'd been secretive about this meeting, refusing to tell her what it was about. Elin Voss saved my life, Kyle continued. Then she proved herself to this pack, to our allies, to everyone who doubted what a singer could be. She's earned her place here not through blood or birth, but through action and courage. He turned to her, and there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch, which is why I'm asking, in front of our pack as witnesses, if you'll accept a formal place in Blackpine. Not as my responsibility, not as someone we're protecting, but as pack, truly, as my equal. The words hit her like a wave. Equal, not lesser, not broken. Equal. I don't understand, Elin whispered. I'm asking you to stay, permanently. Not because the bond requires it, but because you choose it. Kyle's hand found hers. I'm asking you to be my partner in leading this pack. To stand beside me not as Omega to Alpha, but as leader to leader. Lyra stepped forward, holding something, a pendant on a silver chain carved with symbols Elin didn't recognize. This is the pack leader's mark, she explained, usually reserved for the Alpha's chosen second. Kale wants to give it to you, make you co-leader. It's unprecedented, but she smiled. So are you. Elin looked around the hall at faces that had become familiar over the past 2 weeks, at people who'd stopped seeing her as a burden and started seeing her as one of them. What do you say? Kael asked quietly. Will you stay? 3 weeks ago, she'd had nothing. No home, no family, no purpose beyond survival. Now she had all of it. Yes, Elin said, her voice strong and clear. I'll stay. The hall erupted in cheers as Kael fastened the pendant around her neck. As he did, she felt the bond between them shift, deepen, become something more than just magical necessity. It became choice, and that made all the difference. That night, standing on the balcony of the manor house with Kael beside her, watching the settlement lights twinkle below, Elin finally understood what her grandmother had tried to tell her all those years ago. Power wasn't about being perfect. It was about being real, about using what you had, voice, courage, stubborn refusal to give up, to make the world a little better than you found it. What are you thinking? Kael asked. That I'm glad I went into that storm. She leaned against him. That I'm glad I found you dying and stayed anyway. That I'm glad for all of it, even the terrible parts. Even being exiled? Especially being exiled, because it brought me here. She looked up at him. To this, to you, to home. Kael kissed her forehead gently. Welcome home, Elin Voss. Singer, healer, leader, and the most stubborn person I've ever met. Takes one to know one. He laughed, and the sound carried out over Blackpine, over the territory they would protect together, over the future they were building one choice at a time. Below them, the pack gathered for the evening meal. Children played in the square. Guards patrolled the borders. Life continued, ordinary and extraordinary all at once. And Elin, who had spent her whole life being told she was worthless, stood beside an alpha who treated her as an equal, wearing the mark of a leader, and knew, finally, completely, that she was exactly where she belonged. The girl cast out for being different had become the force that united a territory, and the man she saved made sure the world never forgot her name.